All right.
Okay.
Well, thanks, Julian, for accepting my invitation actually to do this thing together. As you know, as I wrote on the email for everybody, I would like to create more content that actually meet people where they are, so that can be useful, the kind of discussions and topics that I try to touch and that I put on the YouTube channel. That's why I had this idea one day, to ask my students, but also to everybody who had questions, to come together and just, talk about something that can be important for them, and sharing all these answers and this conversation, this friendly conversation we're going to be having on the YouTube channel, so that other people can benefit and they can also get to know a little bit the way I am, but also they can understand a bit more what we do in the Nei Qi Gong system and the kind of approach that I personally have as the instructor within the school. That everybody is different, no? We bring our personality also in the way we teach, in the way that we go after certain goals, so to speak, especially because the Nei Qi Gong has this kind of superpower manifestation. So that's why I try to bring the attention on another aspect that I believe are more important. So thanks for accepting this invitation, and I'm actually interested to hear if you want to introduce yourself a little bit, that would be nice. And then we can actually have a conversation, really, a free conversation about certain things you want to know.
Sure. Well, I will begin by introducing myself. Well, my name is Julian. I'm originally from Spain, but now living in Cyprus. I work as a psychotherapist, and basically I came across Nei Qi Gong a little bit, by coincidences. Although I don't believe maybe in coincidences, maybe it was, part of my path. And I was looking, let's say, in my personal quest for a system that would allow me to develop myself in a holistic way, not only spiritually, physically, something, and yes, and somehow I clicked with the Nei Qi Gong, and I've been practicing. It's already almost 3 months I've been practicing, and I already noticed many improvements. And I would say from the physical part, because I work a lot sitting, so that's let's say the most visible ones. And I had a lot of pains in my back and tensions, and this kind of went away. And then it's interesting because on the same side, you begin to notice more subtle effects. I mean, being subtle, I don't think doesn't mean that they're not powerful. And I think I learned from this expectation that you're expecting something, like, I'm making a joke, but they're saying that the fire come out of your hands, But sometimes, these little manifestations, I think they have more bigger implications that we might, like. So yes. So, and basically today I wanted to discuss with you and to ask you, how to integrate, this practice. Also, because you mentioned also that you have been doing you have been doing your own path with Buddhism, meditation, and I kind of feel, that I would like to, probably not combine, because these are two different aspects, to maybe add meditation into the package, to my daily practices. So I wanted to know how to make it in a more like in a way that it makes sense, for.
So you're asking about integrating the Nei Qi Gong system with other kind of meditation, and to bring this thing into our daily life, so it becomes practical. You see, I think you need to see Nei Qi Gong as a neutral tool. That's why I really liked it, because in my life I went through, my own path. I'm going to be very brief about it, but so that I can give a little bit of an overview. I started reading mystical books, creating lots of ideas about reality, how things are, which took me to a very confused perception of reality. I explored drugs very thoroughly in many different aspects to mess up with my perceptions and doubts what I was perceiving. I even tried a few times, 5 times ayahuasca, a couple of times peyote. I became a Buddhist practitioner, even though already my teacher was kind of an open-minded person who was already removing certain cultural aspects, because he realized that the thing, what it is important, is really the essence of the teaching, not really all the cultural, the folkloric aspect of it. And then I went into the Nei Qi Gong system, which for me, in my case, was the missing brick. You know, it was the what it clicked. And what I really liked about the path is that it doesn't have any belief. It doesn't have any way of being. It doesn't have any diet. It doesn't have any kind of sexual restriction. It doesn't have any guru system, any beliefs. So it's like a system that really engineers the body, optimize it, body, mind, mental aspect, and emotion to a higher degree. That's why I really liked it. So I don't feel and see any interference with other kind of practices, whether it is another form of Qigong or whether it is another kind of meditative self-inquiring path. In fact, as you know, I'm trying also to explore with my students, whoever wants to join, this kind of more intellectual investigation of the nature of the mind that I learned from my Buddhist teacher, because I think that it's valuable, especially to give a better perspective about the possibility that the Nei Qi Gong has on a practical level. So what I'm trying to say is this. Nei Qi Gong is a tool. It's like you bring your car to the technician. They know how to fix it. It's going to work better. Then you can do whatever you want with it. Mm-hmm. So I would say that it doesn't create an interference with other kind of Qigong system, unless we are practicing advanced levels of Nei Qi Gong and you're maybe doing some kind of advanced practices of Nei Gong. Because at that level, things might interfere. Because maybe you're trying to achieve different goals, and the experiences and the kind of work we're doing is so demanding and so what can I say? It really brings lots of changes in ourselves, that doing different practice from different paths might actually lead to some kind of conflict. But at the basic stage, like the first 6 basic practices, can be integrated with anything that you do. Regarding your observation about integrating the practice with our daily life, what I think is that, and that was a mistake I was making in the past, is that I was going into spiritual stuff as an escape from life. Because life, let's face it, it can be quite ugly. You know? The world is not that nice looking most of the time, no? It can be rough, you know, not everybody behaves in the right way. So in my case, it was a way of I'm finding something better, and with my ideas projecting some kind of enlightenment with colors and all the rest of it that was going to happen somewhere, right? Which I think it's a common idea for many people. But we end up dividing reality into spirituality and life. So a spiritual possibility of having some kind of heaven, let's say, while I'm alive, and practical life that eats you in the face. On a practical level, what I can say is that if we don't bring our achievement of Nei Qi Gong, in this case, we're talking about Nei Qi Gong, could be yoga, could be anything else, into our daily life, it's already complete, the kind of work that we're doing. I would try to be more specific and practical about it. You talked about loosening your body during the practices, so feeling more open and maybe even more centered with your mind. So calmness, or this kind of sensation, or body awareness. And you said something very important, which is about becoming more aware of subtle things, which is not something to undervalue, because the more we work with ourselves, the more we are able to deal with more aspects, no? So we are able to see more things. So not just the body perception, we might see our internal movements, we might create some space already from it. But to go back to what I was saying, is that the goal is that I bring this sense of awareness of my body, looseness, even in my daily life, that I bring that calmness even in my daily life, which means somehow also dividing at the beginning, let me use this bad expression, a little bit of my attention between the perceptions and what's happening inside me. You see what I mean? So in that way, I've just become more aware of myself. And maybe even when I'm washing my dishes, I might realize that my shoulders are not that relaxed. So I can even bring the attention there. And, you know, I can open it up, I can keep on doing my dishes. And at the same time, I can kind of go back a little bit into the mind state and the body state, emotional state as well, that I'm having while I'm practicing. And that is very interesting, because that is really when the change starts to happen in our practical life, because we might respond to life in a different way, because we're acting from a different space. Before, maybe we were tense and somebody was talking to us and we just react. But if we start to be more centered even during our daily life, also the way that we respond is more, it's a choice. Because before it was just a reactiveness happening. But if we are able to be more aware of our subtleties, so mind movements and body and all these things while we act in life, then we can start to make choices. So for me, it's really bringing that freedom that we discover through the practice based on expanding awareness, even though it sounds terrible, it sounds silly, mystical, this thing, but start to become more aware of ourselves in our daily life through the achievement that we do in our practice. And that is for me a practical way of living, because we are not escaping life, we're just optimizing ourselves to deal with it better, because we know it's quite unpredictable, this game. So I can try to fix myself and work to the highest degree and deal with anything that life throws at me, and, you know, try to make sense out of it and be good. That will be my opinion about it. I don't know what would be yours.
So if I understand well, basically, I mean, we start by the practice. Of course, there is a learning part of the practice, but then kind of the practice starts, let's say, extending itself during the other moments of the day. Let's say it's not only, let's say, the 30-40 minutes you spend doing the different forms and trying to be, let's say, grounded and aware, but then, and it's kind of, I get the feeling sometimes, you know, when you have this doing the practice, I experience the feeling of sometimes looking at the present moment, you know, to really at a certain moment. And this feeling of being in the present moment, when I'm doing another task during the day, I kind of sort of recreate it like in the practice, in the meaning that, okay, what is, I get out of my mental flow, and I say, okay, what is around me? Like, let's just stop the time, you know, for a second and just be there.
100%. I mean, I really like the expression that you use, because presence or observation, I call it sometimes pure observation, which means even before the idea of somebody observing it, there is observation. There is something happening in our life. If we are into our mind, we just move crazily about it. But we stop, as you said, we can just observe how things are. And you use this expression, which is, I think, quite correct. The time stops, which, if you think about this, when we don't think, time doesn't exist. Okay, the clock keeps on spinning, but psychologically, there is no sense of time. Like, for instance, you're doing something that you really enjoy and you're not thinking, I like playing music, or I like swimming, I'm having love, or whatever it is, time goes away. Psychological time goes away. There is total observation and involvement with what we are doing. And so I really like the expression that you say, the time stops, because at the end of the day, we are trying to discover something that we already have, which is this ability of perceiving, of just being with things without engaging too much the mind. And with the Nei Qi Gong system, or any kind of system works with the body, I believe, you really are led naturally into this process, because you are observing your sensations, especially if you don't have expectation about the practice. So if you just do it and you just observe, so naturally you will be sliding into this nice state that you described. You know, time stops, and I can even recall or remember or go back. All wrong expressions for me, because it's always there, this ability, but I totally understand what you mean. It's nice that you're approaching the practice in this way, because I think maybe at the beginning people might be fascinated about these abilities that the Nei Qi Gong system is able to bring in our life. But for me, it's more interesting, like talking like you in this way, and already going even beyond the practice and the achievement. So using the practice to go, if I can say, deeper into our into this center, no, into this kind of just observation of things and more awareness. So it's not, it's a very good way of practicing also. The sensations and the achievement will come even faster if we don't mess it up with our mind and expectations. So
okay.
very good.
And I had something I was wondering. It's yeah, I mean, probably this is I mean, harnessing the mind, I think is such a difficult thing. I mean, sometimes is when I'm practicing, I realize, you know, this kind of flow of ideas that come, that I don't know, about the daily life, about the groceries, about what happened, analyzing something, and then you're like, okay, go back to the feeling on your feet, go back to the posture you are making, and it's kind of not a struggle, but it's like a back and forth, you know, and I find that sometimes it's frustrating because you're thinking, okay, I'm trying to focus on the sensations, and the mind is like, come here.
It's true. At the beginning, you know, any kind of meditative practice that we do, it's not about feeling blissful. You know, we sit and we see all the compulsiveness and the mind movements that we have, and we have to be patient with ourselves, and, you know, I also be nice with ourselves, because you know, it's just the content of our mind that we start to see. And as you said correctly, the goal is actually not get distracted by these things that are not really happening at that moment also, no? Because you think about the grocery store, but you're doing some exercises. What can you do about it? You cannot go. I mean, you're doing the exercises, right? So it's normal at the beginning, and it is normal that we think that thoughts appear in our life, awareness, call it whatever you want to call it. But then it becomes a choice. The more we, it's not what we control. Actually, it is the opposite. The more we allow them to come and we see them with our observation, the more, if our observation is total, the more they disappear. Because usually the thoughts, they come, and that kind of engagement with the thoughts come with a 50% attention. What I mean is this: maybe I'm doing some exercises, a thought slides in about the grocery store, starts to think about tomatoes and other things, you know. But it's like if I'm 50% I'm there with my body, 50% I'm somewhere else. But I give total attention to something without, in that case, willing to engage with it, it's just gonna vanish. So it's normal that at the beginning we experience movement, lots of movement, no? That's why also we have in the Nei Qi Gong system, the third level and the fourth level, they are more meditative practices. Actually, the first and the second level are the most physical ones. Then we start to move less and we do more internal things. But at the beginning, it's normal to, and we have to be nice. We don't have to create another conflict. What I mean is, if I'm practicing, I have the thoughts of the grocery store, just allowed to be there. You know, it's gonna go away. You're not gonna go and buy it, so you're gonna go back to the exercise and sensations. All the rest of it is gonna go. With time, you will see for yourself that the quality of your mind is gonna become sharper and sharper. So with the ability of staying where you, not where you want, but what it is really happening at that moment, and at that state, with some meditative practice or exercises, we start to go even deeper in moments of no thoughts at all. And even that experience, then with time, we start to be integrated in life. And even when actions are taking place, I don't know if you heard about this thing. It's a Chinese thing, I believe, called Wu Wei, action without action. It's a concept in the look up this concept. Wu, like W U, Wei, W, yeah, Wu Wei, W E I, Wu Wei, action without action. or effortless action, it's called also. It's a Taoist thing, in the sense that it really tries to explain this concept of effortless action, of just doing things without striving. And so we have to be natural, even with our things that sometimes could be a bit distracting, just to be nice about it, and and bring back the attention to the practice in your case, and you will see with time that this kind of random thoughts will be less and less present, and will come a moment where you will be able just to stay with no thoughts and just execute things from a place of pure observation, as you described before, for a longer time. And then eventually the real thing and the really interesting aspect happens when we start to live in that way more and more into our daily life, which maybe at the beginning it's a few minutes per day, and then maybe 10 minutes, and maybe because we really start to be fully attracted by this way of living, because it's so nice without your mind creating troubles that don't exist. Life has some things going, but you don't make more. So that we naturally foster this kind of way of perception, way of being, state, if I can call it like this, and we can start to live more and more in that state, even in our daily life, even when actions are taking place. That's why I brought up the way concept, because although maybe inside there is no effort in talking or in doing things, I'm still acting in the world, but I can be kind of quiet inside, even if apparently there are actions taking place outside. Because very little example, and then I'll leave you the space for say something. It's like we usually think that to do something, even to have a conversation like this, we have to fully focus. So, and when we focus with our mind, we get into the conversation by thinking, oh, what Julian is going to think about what I'm going to say. Is he going to like it? Is not going to like it? I'm going to lose a student. I'm going to gain a student, all the rest of it. So it really becomes a kind of contracted way that takes lots of energy and make us very not that spontaneous, right? But I remember my teacher, Shifu Costantino Valente, told me there is a very simple way, to remove the juice from the mind. And this is what we do also with the Nei Qi Gong all the time. Like, while I talk to you, if I bring my attention on my buttocks sitting on the chair, I can still talk to you while my full attention goes down there. This very simple thing already helps us to kick into a present state, because the mind is not producing juice anymore, and my attention is going into my buttocks. So that could be a very nice way just to remove the movement, the kind of natural flourishing of the mind into creating other things. When we do the practice, we do it with the sensations, right? So.
And it's kind of yes, because I think, well, what in my I mean, what I've been learning also so far is this. Of course, you have the mind, but you have something else, the discovery of, the focus on something which are sensations. It's kind of, I left the sensations as a secondary thing, something you feel when, I don't know, when the stove is too hot and you put the hand and you feel it's for alarm purposes or for, and now I kind of feel, I'm giving more importance to those sensations. It's kind of, okay, the mind goes in number two, and in number one, you focus on those sensations. And I think this is it's a very big switch, because it's I don't know if it's the society, but it's a lot in the mind. It's a lot in the, and for me it has already this, and it's subtle, but at the same time I think it's interesting, because it's somehow you attach importance to something that in commas doesn't seem that important, and then you discover that it actually gives you a lot of insight about in your path.
Yeah, because also it creates space in the mind, and insights they come when intuition, insights they come when there is space in the mind. Insight most of the time they don't come as a consequence of intellectual process, but they come all of a sudden. Maybe you're relaxing on a hammock or on a sofa, whatever it is. All of a sudden you have like, boom, that idea that comes 100%, or that understanding that comes like this. This is very common in the Nei Qi Gong path because it really helps develop intuition quite a lot. It's nice that you're talking like this and you're doing first level for now. But in my opinion, is that true insight and creativity do not belong to the intellectual mind. Intellectual mind can come up with new ideas based on memories, so on things that already knows. Like, do you see what I mean? Like a scientist gathering data and trying to make sense out of it. But the real innovation, vision, visionary thoughts, for me, it's something that I don't know where it comes from in one sense, but if my mind is there, it's impossible to have it. So what you said, that it looks like a subtle switch, for me makes lots of difference, because it's another way of operating in life. No, it's almost an impersonal way of operating in life, because as you described correctly, we are very conditioned since we are a child, families, then we are traumatized, experiences, all the rest of it. We all do all the story. If we are here talking about this, we read already those things. But now maybe we can start to understand what it means, switching our way of working towards a more natural way of being, a more simple also, no, less complicated, less intellectual, because also I think we are quite pretentious in saying that we can understand things. It's a big thing in life, so I don't know. Already, paying attention to our body, as you notice, I realize that I can loosen my body, I can notice certain subtleties even in my mind and my things. And the more we explore this thing, the more, I don't know where it ends, or it can already be quite good entertainment just to pay attention to ourselves. And it also becomes a nice source of contentment, because, we're talking about also sweetening our emotions as well, no? Because when the thoughts, they start to behave properly, even, there is a thought, then comes an emotion connected to it, and then there is an action. That's the kind of process, right? If my thoughts are already, there is an emptiness in my mind, or they are more, they are not destructive because I'm already going into one direction, even my emotions will be different, even my action will be more aware. So ultimately, my practical life is going to change for the better, and my life experience will be perceived from a better standpoint. Because sometimes you have two people on the same beach looking at the moon. One guy is depressed, the other one is happy. They are looking at the same thing, only the way that their personal unit is working is determining the way that we handle life. What do you think about that?
Well, I kind of get, I agree with you. I mean, in the conception, and it's it's a little bit, I don't know, like I got to read a little bit of Chinese philosophy, and sometimes, in these very old scriptures, the Tao Te Ching, and you read something and it looks very simple, and you're like, okay, this is like fortune cookies, let's say, wisdom. But then you start thinking about it. You start thinking, and you're like, okay, well, it seems easy, but it's very complex at the same time. Maybe there is something more. And the thing you were saying about that sometimes we have this our intellect, that we tend to to be a little bit arrogant in that respect, to say, okay, we understand everything, we have everything, and then you start thinking, oof, this is much deeper than I thought, and it's kind of it's like a humbling experience at the same time, because the more you understand, the more you realize the complexity, and the more you kind of I don't know, maybe you go more humble about it. You think, okay,
Well, I would say that more than the complexity, the infinite nature of things, because you know, our perception of reality is quite definite. You know, there is a chair, there is a pole, there is, but we don't usually have the experience of the allness thing. We just have little perspective, right? And related to the Nei Qi Gong practices, and you will see in the path when you move on, you might get to a point very soon, maybe, that you say, this is the sensation, no? You say, this is it. Then you keep on working a few months, you do next level, whatever it is, no? And then you find something else and say, no, actually this is it. Okay. Then you keep on going and you say, no, this is actually the real thing. Those things were just still, very little sensation. And honestly speaking, I don't know where it ends, because I'm currently doing level 10. And so I have something happening, let's say, in my body, already. It's been going for a while, but the level 10 is it's very good. Quite like it also, but it's very powerful one. And the practice doesn't even last that long, It's shorter than the basic practice. I was in Costa Rica, by the way. For the first time, I tried to make my students feel something, and she felt something. Because at level 10, you start to make people feel something, no? Although level 10, you practice for 1 year, and started recently. I think maybe I'm entering now the 3rd month, but I managed. It worked. She had some sensation, very little. We're not talking about Fagong, Qi emission, because we will learn it in the level 11. But in my experience, is first of all, going back to what we said at the beginning, it becomes a practical experience in your daily life. It's not just a Qi experience during your practice. No, your body gets transformed. So it goes on the daily life. It works on a different level. If your mind is already more meditative, as we discussed before, with the ability of just being there without messing up too much, you will feel it even more. But honestly speaking, I keep on exploring and seeing that the intensity of the perceptions, and also our personal growth connected to it, it keeps on growing. So there is no end to it. We're just trying to grow more and more, and that's the humbling part of it. That it's nice. I think it's I really admire people like you, all the people who take these kind of practices seriously, because they really want to improve and evolve themselves, which is, I think, the most it's a very virtuous thing to do in this life, trying to change, to improve ourselves, which is not a pleasant thing to do sometimes, because you see your limitation, as you say. So when I go to the grocery store while doing something else, you say, what's going on with my mind? So it can be a painful process, sometimes, but it's very nice. With a little bit of dedication, we can improve our life and also our little surrounding. I'm not talking about changing the world. It really depends what kind of place you have in society, but people near you can benefit from your work, and that's a nice thing to do. It becomes a practical thing also for other people.
Yeah, I think it's I mean, I'm not thinking about changing the world, but it's true that if you can make the difference, I think if that person that you help make a difference, maybe that person will help somebody else. So I think also that it will maybe create a positive chain effect. I think
100%.
But yes, I think the best we can do is sometimes to invest in ourselves, to learn, to develop, and I think it's also looking at let's say the situation in the world. I think it's also the kind of tool that also helps. I think it also helps to live in the world we live, and to accept things, and to look that there is a possibility of development, that and if the development doesn't happen around society, we can develop internally as well. in the meantime, you know.
100%. Very well said. It's all about our responsibility, you know. We cannot decide how things go in life. We can just plant seeds and we can do our little actions. We don't have control over the whole thing moving. Otherwise, we won't be here. Probably we will be somewhere else with a different name. But definitely, you know, that's why it's a practical thing to do. You know, we can improve ourselves. By improving myself, I can perceive the world in a different way, and you know, I can contribute in my little way. As you said, maybe I talk to somebody or I teach to somebody something which is going to have an impact, and then the other person is going to go, you know, that it's already, you know, it's choosing between acting for the good, for constructive for others at the end of the day, or just, you know, destructive modes and all the rest of it, because human beings tend to be quite destructive when they don't work on themselves, and we don't know why. It's just the way that we are built here. So I mean, it's been nice for me also to have this kind of students. You know, that I don't accept everybody. When I see with people, you know, I push them away, but it's nice for me, and that's why we talked on the Patreon yesterday, on the Patreon meeting, to well, we're gonna do some changes so that we can gather also more like this and talk, no, together, because I think it's really valuable when society is not really encouraging us to do certain work. Also, sometimes we get even criticized by family members because we are closing ourselves 40 minutes in the room instead of going and do some work or do the shopping. No, we're just thinking for ourselves, no, in one sense. Although this change will benefit them, but I think it's nice to connect each other together and, you know, just spend some quality time just to reinvigorate and exchange ideas, because this is not about being higher or lower than somebody. It's really about sharing tools, being together. If someone has some experience on one field, you know, a little bit leading more others towards the thing. That's why the next Patreon meeting is going to be, well, we're going to practice all together. The first level is going to be just 1 hour. So it's a practicing session. And then the next one, maybe we're going to join all together. Hopefully more people will join. So we can get together like this. So it becomes practical, not just a very high vision of things. We try to give the whole thing so that we can meet everybody where they are. It can be more, you know, I'm learning. A teacher means that, you know, instructor means that you're learning on the way. So you're trying to see what is more effective for others. I don't mind to do one thing or the other thing, as long as it works and we can be together, and, you know, what it is good for the most number of people, I would say. We'll go in that direction. So pleasure to be here with you talking about this.
Me too. Has been a pleasure, and also I think these kind of conversations are good because sometimes it's a lonely path in a way. You know, it's a very personal path, and I think as human creatures we need sometimes to you know, to exchange views, to have this exchange, and I think it's for me, it's something that stimulates me in pursuing my practice, in you know, in maybe focusing on things I wouldn't have focused, or you know, like because the practice raises a lot of questions at the same time. You know, it's so. Thank you.
You're welcome. We're gonna try to do twice a month the Patreon thing, the meetings. And I'm going to put the link for everybody who's going to be watching this thing if they want to join. And we're going to do 1 hour twice per month so that we can gather like this and talk, because it's very important. You said it. It's not very common to find people who work on themselves. And these kind of people also have a certain depth of seeing things, which doesn't mean that they cannot make nice jokes, but they have the full spectrum. So they want to live with meaning, and they want to live in a truth way, no? So it's nice to connect together. And I really thank you for being here. It has been a great pleasure, Julian, to talk about these topics together. And I wish you a great day. And if you want to conclude, we're gonna stop the recording, and we're gonna then put this thing on the YouTube channel so that other people can benefit from this conversation and get inspired, as you say, no? Because it's about also sometimes like you light one candle for another person and give some some light for the other, no, just because you kind of have that drive, or help the other people to see the drive in themselves. And I think that's very important. That's a very valuable thing to do in the world at any time.
Very well, Andrea.
Well, have a great day, Julian. I will be in touch, okay?
Okay. Bye-bye.
Take care. Have a good day. Bye.